Hello, I'm Claire. Welcome to episode 13 of From the Horsebox, where we trundle through the lanes to encounter an interesting conversation to bring you, in the hope that podcasts are now part of your daily downtime. Kate, how's your downtime been lately?
Well, there's been a bit of a downside with an injured wrist, but the upside is family weddings and babies to keep me busy. With the weather being so mild, the garden has been put to bed, and we'll soon be thinking about Christmas. You are most probably ahead of the game on this one, Claire.
Well, I'm always trying to be ahead of the game, but at the moment I'm in the throes of half-term as we speak. But your mention of the run-up to Christmas is exciting, as we have festive podcast plans, and today's countryman is, as always, a top guest.
And so, let's meet our guest today, John Clarke, local Malpas boy through and through. Drink in hand, John. Whoops. You might need it. Let's start with something about you that nobody knows.
Well, I suppose I would say I'm a bit of a secret science fiction fan, a bit of a Trekkie. I used to watch Star Trek every night, just after work, really.
Right. Well, that's got everybody's attention.
Do you still enjoy science fiction?
I do, yeah, I do.
Asimov and Stephen Hawking, is that?
Yeah, I do quite a lot of reading.
Tell us about your family when you're not on the science fiction thing and your strong farming roots here.
Okay, well, it's quite an interesting story how my family came to farm at Earlcastle. Originally, the Clarke family were tenants at Spunhill Farm in Ellesmere, and my grandfather, Robert Clarke, he joined up for the First World War in, I think it was 1914. He was underage. I got a very interesting letter that he wrote back to his mum saying, "Don't worry, mother, I shall be home in time for the harvest." But of course the war lasted a lot longer than that. But for him, he was wounded badly, and he came back to England. And in the meantime, his sister, who was married to a chap who was a tenant at Earlcastle, her husband died of the 1919 flu pandemic, and grandfather went over there to bailiff for her upon his death, and ended up staying there and getting the tenancy.
Have you still got the letter?
Yes, I did try and find it to bring today, but it's with moving house a couple of times, it's in one of those cardboard boxes, which I can't quite locate at the moment.
Very precious memory. Now, you went to school in Malpas. Do you have happy school memories?
Yes, I started at the Allport School, where I was actually head boy, which people probably wouldn't believe, and then I went on to be at the Heber, which was the second year of it being a comprehensive school. So
talk us through being a comprehensive. What was the difference?
There was no 11 plus anymore, but you still had to do some, I can hardly remember, some exams, I think, to sort out which stream you were in when you went in. All the children from Townhall and Farndon and around all went into Malpas Heber, and my year, I think, was 120 pupils, which was, in those days, quite unusual.
So that's meant you, in later life, you have got a lot of Malpas friendships and contacts still from those days. Yeah. Is there anyone in particular that you remember from those days at school?
Oh, yes, I've still got quite a lot of close friends. There's Robert Bourne, Tom Mills, and, of course, who is now my brother-in-law, Martin Blake.
Yes, and he's later to play a really important role in your life. We love a head boy on our podcasts. After Peter Roselli, I think, was our last. What did it mean to you being head boy?
Mainly fear of public speaking at things like the Christmas play and the Harvest Festival, to be quite honest. I'm not a great public speaker.
You didn't get paid like they sometimes do today?
Oh, no, absolutely not. No.
But you've always liked academic. You've always been...
Yeah, to be honest, I've found schoolwork quite easy.
So you floated to the top stream pretty
well, I did, actually.
Swiftly. Yeah. And after A-levels, you went to the University of Bradford to read business studies, finance and marketing.
That's right, yeah.
Bradford must have seemed worlds apart from rural Mulpus.
Oh, completely, yeah. Having grown up in somewhere like Earl Castle, to go into a city with lots of different cultures there was quite a shock. I was sort of quite a fussy eater, being an only child, so first couple of weeks there I survived on salmon paste sandwiches.
And then you discovered the curries.
Well, yeah, of course I hated curries when I first went there, but after peer pressure, year 2 started to eat them, and then of course you become a bit of an addict, so yeah.
Well, my mind goes to Michelle making those vindaloos that were so popular for the curry night.
Yeah.
So things have moved on.
Yes, and it is officially Britain's curry capital.
That's right.
Is it?
Gosh, you were there in the 80s, and that was memorable for other things too,
quite,
apart from you.
Yeah, it was, of course, where the Yorkshire Ripper operated and lived. So he had been caught just before I went there. But of course, it was quite scary for girls at the time because it sort of had a reputation. More for the boys, a bit macabre, really. We did go and search out his house and went and had a look at it.
Yes.
He was a lorry driver, wasn't he?
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
Something like that.
Now, you passed your accountancy exams and then began practicing in Manchester and Chester. And it was this time you also became friendly with Martin's sister, your school friend Martin, a very special someone called Michelle.
That's right, yeah. I ended up marrying one of my best friend's sisters, which is a bit tricky at times. Well, it was at first, but then everyone
well, it's been a very successful and popular partnership, the two of you. And you married in 1991 and started life together near Threepwood.
Yes, we lived in what was part of the servants' quarters of Broughton Hall.
And then you were working on accountancy.
Yeah, I worked in accountancy I went to work for a firm in Nantwich called Afford Bond. Am I allowed to say that? And I obviously later became a partner and owner of the business.
And you're still consulting for them today?
I work for them now, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, after Threepwood, you moved to Chumley, where Jimmy and Robbie were growing up, and you had your first taste of horses, starting with whiskey. Oh,
yes. We had a paddock there, and I thought it needed something other than bullocks in it. So I asked a friend of mine, and I bought a horse. This horse is called Whiskey, and I looked after him, because obviously I knew a little bit about keeping horses, but not how to ride them. Now, Michelle, having hunted with the Cheshire Hunt in her teenage years, she'd kept a saddle all her married life. So I said to her, Michelle, will you put the saddle on Whiskey and just show me how to ride? So Michelle...
That's all there is to it. You put the saddle on, off to go.
She duly saddled Whiskey up, and for horsey people, I later found out he was a 14-2 racing pony that's been rejected. Well, Whiskey got into a trot with Michelle and then decided to eject her. So I better not repeat what she told me at the time. So I thought I need to go and see someone about this. So I thought of my old pal from school, Henry Ormerod. I thought Henry will be able to sort me out with some riding lessons, or Sarah. So off I went there.
That was the start of
lots of adventures.
A very impressive career.
Well, a very late start to horse riding. I was 45 at the time, but never looked back.
And so early on, your aim was to go trail hunting.
Yeah, I'd really thought of perhaps just doing the farm rides and things like that when I got going. Sarah Ormerod found me a horse that suited me. I think he was 12 years old, called Puika.
What happened to Whiskey?
Whiskey went to... Well, they told me he went to be a riding school horse, but I don't know how he would have got on.
Puika was the next stage on. He was the...
Yeah, Puika, he'd been a show jumper in Latvia. So Puika actually means boy in Latvian. And he was a great guy. He taught me to ride. Oh, and an instruction from Sarah.
With a bit of help.
One day Henry said, how do you fancy going autumn hunting? And I said, well, that sounds great. I'd always followed the hunt when we lived on the farm. So we went to Pick Hill to the meet, and I just found I was hooked.
Were you?
Yeah. I carried on and I decided that it would be fine for me to go to the opening meet. I'd not been really riding anything like 12 months, and everyone said, you'll be all right, just don't jump any hedges or anything like that, just take it steady. Of course, I now know that's completely useless advice, and I must have had the shortest opening meet day of anyone really ever. I think I lasted about 30 minutes before Puika decided that he did want to jump hedges like everyone else, and whilst I tried to get him to head for a gate, he headed for the hedge that everyone else was jumping, but of course he jumped the wrong bit, and I ended up, well, I can't really remember it all, blacked out a bit really. He hit some high tensile wire, which I managed to eat, and I was in A&E at the Mailer by about 12 noon, having 18 stitches in my lip.
Yes, no, sadly we do remember that.
What other extraordinary escapades were there?
Oh, well, after that, one of my good pals, Nigel Lloyd, he absolutely couldn't believe I was going to go hunting, and he said, John Clarke, if you're going hunting, I'm effing well going to come with you for the day. So good old Nigel went to his father's meet at Brinover.
Yes.
And I think Nigel had a great day, but I've never been able to persuade him since to go hunting again.
About the bullfinch episode.
Oh, yeah. Well, another one of my good friends, Pete Hockenall. Pete's always keen on giving me a bit of coaching. And this one day we were Park Eaton Way, and he just said, conquer your nerves, John. He said, the next two things, whatever they are, we're going to jump together. So we stood for about half an hour whilst the hounds were waiting to find the trail. First thing we jumped was a little rail with a bit of a drop behind it, and then we were confronted with a hedge. I could see everyone going left, but I could hear in my ear from Pete, go right, go right. What he meant was for Emma to go right, not me. Anyway, I put Puika into third gear and headed off, and headed for a completely wrong part of the hedge. I've got a bit of a habit of that, unfortunately. Anyway, we jumped something that was, I don't know how high it was, but it hadn't been clipped. We landed the other side. I lost both stirrups. Puika did the splits with front and back legs. I was completely winded, but I did earn the nickname for about half a day anyway of Big Hedge John.
Big Hedge John. So with your horsepower ever increasing, you also have a love of your dogs that can normally be found on the best seats in the house.
Oh, yes. Both Michelle and I love Cocker Spaniels. I grew up with Cocker Spaniels from a small boy, being an only child. My brother was a dog, and we've got two Cocker Spaniels now. They're actually brothers, but from different litters. And I'm afraid to say they do rather rule the roost.
They are very special.
And didn't they win prizes at the Winstay Kennels Open Day?
Well, that was a big disappointment, really. I thought I would have definitely the first prize in owner that looks most like his dog. And the chairman did make a few comments that the treasurer would go to any lengths to win a rosette. Unfortunately, I only got a third.
They were hard won that day, the ribbons. There were many people who would have liked a third, weren't there, Kate?
Yes, absolutely. And any rosette is a good rosette.
Also enjoy a day's shooting with all the trimmings, which...
Oh, yeah. I did a lot of shooting, really, from starting when I lived on the farm, and shot a lot when I was working, when I was supposed to be working. I always used to say it was good for PR. I was the only partner in the office in the business that didn't play golf, so I used to think I entertained on the shooting field and had great times doing that.
Have you tried the golf ball?
Only a couple of times. Ruination of a good walk.
Right.
It sounds as if you've got all bases covered there with the sport.
It used to be said that you had to fall off 7 times to become a good rider. How are you going on this tally?
Well, Nigel Lloyd actually told me it was 100 times.
Oh, right.
I think I'm nearly getting there. I made lots of friends falling off and people bringing my horse back to me.
So who used to bring your horse back to you?
Hugh Hutchinson Smith, Richard Tyack Sr., just to name but a few.
Yeah. So you did a bit of practicing.
Yeah.
And it was during this time you had a routine medical for work, which was to change your life forever, really.
Yeah. I had high blood pressure, and further investigations found out I'd got kidney disease, which ended up sadly being kidney failure. It's a bit of a silent killer, and something that people need to be watchful and mindful of, really.
And so that obviously has had a huge effect.
Yes, it did. Just after I really a couple of years after I started riding, it kind of developed through stages, and I developed into stage 4, which meant I was really hanging on to Puika a lot of time. And a lot of people probably didn't know I used to eat 2 packets of Trebor mints on a hunting day just to keep going. But I have to say that at that time, it was a bit of a black time of my life. Hunting and riding were one of those things that really helped me mentally get through sort of bits of...
through dark times.
Yeah, dark times, exactly.
But when you managed to get your operation and had a kidney transplant, that has a story to it.
Oh, yeah. Well, my wife, Michelle, first tried to donate me a kidney, and that didn't work out. So my brother-in-law, who was also my best mate, stepped in, and he successfully donated me a kidney. And I think he recovered quite quickly after that. He probably didn't tell me quite what he'd gone through for obvious reasons. But if anyone knows me, I think they'll remember, I used to look a very sort of pale and funny colour out on the horse. And if they see me now, the transformation is quite incredible for someone that's fortunate enough like me to have had a transplant. I did a small spell on dialysis, and that's really horrible.
Wow.
So I would plead people to consider putting themselves on the kidney donor list, all organ donor list.
What a miracle that must have been, how you felt after the operation.
I honestly felt 10 years younger virtually the next day. My eyesight came better. Small things I couldn't believe. My taste, everything
Amazing.
Changed.
It is amazing.
Looking back on it, did it really make you evaluate your life?
Oh, it did, definitely. You sort of recover from something like that, and you sort of think, well, there's 2 ways I could go. I could try and rule the financial world, or I could do something different, and I chose the do something different route, really.
Every day is precious.
Yeah, absolutely. Jump out of bed when the alarm goes off, or even before nowadays.
So you changed your life in a major way. You made a huge decision, didn't you?
Yeah. I decided to stop full-time work in accountancy, and I was fortunate enough to be able to have the resources to buy a farmhouse and some farmland. And in fact, I have quite a funny story in that someone I've mentioned before, Mr. Tyack, rode up to me one day, said to me, "So, John, I've heard a rumour that you've sold a successful accountancy practice and rolled the money over into a farm." And then he laughed and rode off.
And this was way before the Jeremy Clarkson programme that everybody's been talking about.
That's right.
So in 2016, you took on another challenge, buying Woolsacre, together with the cats.
Oh, yes, the Woolsacre cat story. Well, that was... I did the deal with Alan Slater, and everything gone really well. And then just before we shook, Alan said, "There's just one thing before we shake." And I thought, oh, here we go. What's this going to be? And he said, "How do you feel about cats?" I said, "I don't really yet, have any massive ideas." And he said, well, there's 5 on the farm. We're very fond of them, and I'll have to get rid of them because I know you're going to knock the house down and rebuild it. So I said, well, I know just the person for cats. But having said that, it's me that's very fond of the cats now. We've got 5, and they're all named after members of the, I think it's the X Factor. So we've got Tom, Jesse, Danny, etc. And they're all still alive, Alan, if you're listening.
That's a lovely story.
Oh, and do you still watch the X Factor?
No, right. Never have. Sorry.
So you completely demolished the old hall and rebuilt on the same foundations?
Yeah, exactly. Virtually the same footprint. We just had to move it over a little bit to make the planners happier because of the old moat, which is a scheduled monument of Wales.
And the wolf story behind Wolfsacre.
Okay. Well, legend has it that the last wild wolf was slain in the woods in Wolfsacre Wood, and so that's why the place is called Wolfsacre. Though the locals actually call it Oozicre, and I don't think anyone quite knows why.
It must have been really exciting and rewarding building the new house. What were the highs and lows?
Well, it's a real privilege to be able to do that. I think the most difficult thing is having a blank canvas for a design.
Yes.
But we wanted to do something that was in keeping with Iscoyd Park next door. I think we've managed to do that. The lows probably, the chimney story. I had to do the chimneys twice. They're false chimneys, actually made of brick and everything, but they're on steel platforms. And of course, because they don't have a base, they're just like sponges for rainwater. So the first lot, we got the house nearly finished, and I'm afraid they leaked. So we had to knock them down and rebuild them.
That must have been heartbreaking.
Well, that was the trouble, because we've had the roof slated, and we think you're nearing the end, but end of the day, it wasn't that big a thing.
There's bound to be mistakes when you've got such a huge project.
Well, and you're an amateur builder. Yeah. I had a lot of help from one of my neighbours, who won't be mentioned, but I did have a lot of help.
And do the children think you got it about right? Do they approve?
I think so, but according to them, there's always room for improvement.
So, but far higher priority would be the stable block.
Oh, yes.
And you're very hands-on, you and Michelle, looking after your animals. Who does what jobs?
Well,
you do it all yourselves, don't you?
I'm afraid I'm the mucking out end and Michelle's the feeding end. That's the way we work it. And I don't do gyms and things anymore. So I think all the mucking out and everything is great for keeping fit and doing something useful while you're at it.
It's good for your mental health as well.
Absolutely.
Physical jobs. And also another part of your change of from accountancy after your operation was getting involved with the eventing world.
Yeah.
And that must have been with a lot of a fun syndicate.
Oh, yeah. We had a little syndicate, and we bought a horse called Fanta Boy.
What was the syndicate called?
Oh, sorry, the Empty Nest Syndicate, because we'd all...
That's quite clever.
All our children had left home at the time. Of course, they come and go, as I now know at the moment. But we had great times with that. We travelled all around. Hannah Bate rode him for us.
So where was your biggest success with Fanta Boy?
Well, I don't think it was the biggest actual event that he won, but he did win at Gatcombe.
Wow. And
Princess Anne gave out the prizes. Unfortunately, it was one of those days where we weren't there. We were shooting. And so Michelle's never forgiven me for dragging her shooting when we should have met Princess Anne.
Oh, dear. And you've also got a racing interest?
Yeah. Well, we sell Fanta Boy on Georgie Spence now rides him. And on the sort of crest of a wave of that, we bought a small interest in a leg and a horse from Ollie Greenall. And that's been great fun. We just thought we'd try something different. And, of course, Stockton Hall is very close to us, so I can pop over and see the horse. We've got another leg now with another small syndicate, and I think it's the way to go. It's really sort of cuts down the risk on one not being a good one, having small shares in lots of different horses.
And it must be a lot of fun meeting all sorts of different people.
Yeah, exactly. It's obviously a different set of people than eventing. Eventing's sort of very friendly. You know a lot of people. We've always enjoyed going to the races, but we're looking forward to the new one we've got. It's called Good Work, and we hope he's going to show Bangor what to do.
Oh, we're hoping for some hot tips.
Don't know about that.
Meanwhile, Wolfsacre's an ongoing project. You said you planted nearly 2,000 trees, with Michelle being the spiral lady.
That's right, yeah. We thought we'd try and put something back to nature, as it were, and we planted about 2,000 trees. We did a lot last February in the cold weather. I managed to break 2 spades in the process. And I plant and Michelle puts little plastic spirals round. And we've got plans for lots more trees this winter.
And when you're not planting trees, you're building fences with
Oh,
Ted?
yes. Well, with the help of Ted, I think we have repaired and put in over 40 jumps on Woolsacre, which we love people coming round and having a ride round. One of the reasons why we bought the place.
Thank you, John, so much for your time and sharing your story with us. I can see my editor looking at the clock, so we'll finish with some quick fire questions.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Camping or glamping?
Oh, glamping or hotels, definitely.
Dancing or singing?
Definitely not singing. You've heard my voice. Dancing.
Attend a party or host a party?
I like hosting, to be honest, but both, yeah.
What is your most used emoji?
Well, it used to be the thumbs up because that was quite easy, but since the racehorses, I think it's become the fingers crossed sign.
Oh, good answer. What was your first concert you ever went to?
The Psychedelic Furs in Liverpool.
And finally, Vindaloo or Korma?
Oh, well, I'm something between. I'm more of a booner, really.
Right.
Gosh.
We ask all our guests to finish with a motto or a joke. There are no boundaries on this one, but preferably something that doesn't have to be edited out.
Okay, well, I'm hopeless at jokes and can never remember them. But when I was first a partner at Afford Bond, Mike Bond was sort of my mentor, and he always said, 5 minutes early for parade, John. Mm. And I've got another one, which I think is really good. One of my clients tell me something about be careful what you say. He always used to say, words once flown cannot be caught.
How true.
Some very wise partners you have there, John. Well, there's a man who likes a challenge, and John has faced the most serious challenge of all when faced with the need for a kidney operation.
Doing my research on LinkedIn, John said, I'm always available for engagements Monday to Friday, and I'm open to any exciting invitations. That is someone who cherishes every moment of life.
I agree. We can all support John and register with the Organ Donor Scheme. It's so quick and easy online at organdonation.nhs.
And while you are online, we have a new email address, which is fromthehorsebox@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, any feedback, good or bad.
Yes, do drop us a line with any suggestions or requests. We have listeners in 6 of 7 continents, but we have yet to crack Antarctica. So if you live on a research station or in the Falkland Islands, or even just down the road, do get in touch.
Thank you for listening today, and we look forward to our next festive episode from the Horsebox, when it could be you and some tinsel in the driving seat.